It's time to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits, whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts. This is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Hersema.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. It is a Friday edition of the podcast, and that means we have another wonderful guest to sit down with and chat about life's journey with, just maybe some things that have come up throughout their life, something that hopefully can inspire some of us and take something home, something to think about, right, as we go into a weekend. Today, we're going to be joined by Steve Martin. No, not the world famous actor from My Blue Heaven and Father of the Bride, although he would be a lot of fun to have on the program. He's actually one of my favorite actors. But anyway, no, not that Steve Martin. I will say the better Steve Martin. Steve Martin, a longtime coach in Kare Youth League in the Indian program. They changed the name since then and everything, but it used to be Atlantic Coral Indian, named after oceans. And he was a big part of the Indian program for years, at least when I was growing up playing in Kare Youth League. Mr. Martin went to Rio Hondo Prep back in the early 70s, played in the first CIF Football Championship Game between Rio Hondo Prep and Brethren Christian, I believe. Rio lost that day, but the juniors and sophomores who came back the very next year were victorious in the championship game in 73. Unfortunately, Steve Martin and his senior classmates, their career ended that night. But I can honestly say it was those guys who really helped propel the RHP football tradition into what it has become today. So we'll talk about RHP sports, maybe football specifically with Mr. Martin, how he discovered Kare Youth League, what it's been like coaching over the years, and of course his career as well, which I'll let him tell you all about. Been very successful throughout his life. And big thing I want to talk to Mr. Martin about, if he's up for it, is, back in 2000, right around 20 years ago, we'll say, give or take, he and his family really went through a tough tragedy. And, I don't know how much he'll be willing to talk about it, but what I want to say about that is that Mr. Martin is someone who has carried himself with quiet strength, at least from what I've seen in my experiences with him, and to kind of achieve what he's achieved, to me, is truly remarkable. His 4 children have become very successful, all grown up now, and we'll get into all that with him. But I just wanted to say that to Mr. Martin. I mean, he's truly an inspiration to a lot of people, and I will let you guys find out why as I get into the conversation here with him. But very much looking forward to this interview with Mr. Steve Martin. Should be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. And thank you for joining us today on another fun interview here on a Friday on the Get Home Safe podcast. Okay, I'm sitting here with Mr. Steve Martin. No, not the actor, the wonderful coach from Kare Youth League. Mr. Martin, it's been a long time. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Good to see you. It's been a while too.
You know what? It has. I was trying to think back when it is. I mean, we generally bump into each other at a football game or something. I haven't been to one in a while, but I think you said you ran into my dad recently at a ball game, right?
Yes, this last week's Rio Hondo Prep football game.
Yeah, he can talk people's ear off. I love him for it, but yeah, he still
it was fun. I was glad to talk to him. It was fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love him to death, and he loves RHP football. And Mr. Martin, we're going to talk about a few things here, but some high school playing days. You guys were in the first team to be in a CIF championship game for Rio. Rio has become a great success since then. Your line of work, your coaching and care. I mean, a lot of things to get to. First off, you're taking the time out of your very busy schedule. You were explaining to me, you're let me see here. I don't want to mess it up. Director of acoustics. I messed it up already. Please tell me what your current occupation is.
I'm an acoustical consultant. I work for Bennett Clausen Associates, and I'm currently the Director of Environmental Acoustics. My actual title is Associate Principal. And then I also, on the side, I do, at Kare Youth League, I'm a member of the Board of Directors.
Very cool. So yeah, still very much involved, not coaching anymore, but a lot of involvement at Kare. And I remember, so back to my dad, you and my dad kind of occasionally would talk at some of these events and things, because you were kind of helping with the sound at times, or electrical, before him or Mr. Bray, the two electricians, kind of got involved, right?
Yeah, I was involved probably directly out of high school with sound systems at Care, video recording, all kinds of news stuff, and got the new camera that came in from that Mr. Phillip went over to Japan and bought, and we used it, and people were just wowed when they saw the equipment we had. But then I also had to do a lot of electrical work around Care that needed improvements. I put in some systems to intercom systems, sound systems for the football game, for the pavilion, for outdoor activities, and I'd run the sound. But I got so that I didn't have enough time or experience to do some of these jobs, and I was looking for help, and I called upon your dad as one of the ones to help me, him and Mr. Bray, who both jumped at the chance and were very helpful.
Yeah, they've contributed a lot of hours down there. My dad with the Kayla Russell Club rooms and a lot of the other stuff there. And so, yeah, it's nice that you had two electricians to actually reach out to, because I think a lot of times at Kare and Rio, it's kind of like you get thrown into the mix of something you kind of know, but don't totally know. So I know Rio and Kare people are very appreciative of the so-called experts, we'll say, although I hate giving my dad so much credit.
No, he definitely is an expert, and I counted on them very faithfully, and they did a great job.
Well, what exactly, you mentioned your job, you've been doing that line of work a long time, acoustics. Tell us about that, what that's been like.
It's very interesting. Noise and vibration is the main thing that I work on. My interest in recording sound and sound systems led me to take one course in acoustics as an elective. And believe it or not, I was an electrical engineer at Cal Poly Pomona, and graduated and looked for jobs, but there was a recession at the time. So Mr. Bill Barbo, I don't know if you remember Jay Barbo, his dad pulled me aside and asked me how it was going. I said, nobody's got any jobs. And he says, come with me. Went to an office, pulled out a yellow pages, and he looked up acoustics, and he found one listing. He says, there it is, call them. So I called them, and they said, well, send us a resume and we'll give it a look. And then they said, oh, by the way, also send us a list of the classes you took and the grades you got. Well, I'd been told that they weren't supposed to do that. So it took me a while before I sent it, but I finally sent it. The day they got it, they called me, wanted an interview. They liked my experience, and they gave me an offer. And so rather than going into electrical engineering, I went into acoustics.
And so what exactly, I mean, without going into too much detail, but like what exactly, you hear acoustics for like in the pavilion, for instance, the old American Savings Pavilion at Rio. It was funny. The only reason we knew even what that word meant was because you could kind of whisper in one corner and hear it all the way across the floor or something. So what exactly do you do or have done in your career in that line of work?
Well, part of it is designing sound systems for buildings. I did a few of those, not as many as I wanted to, but I got more interested in the environmental acoustics anyway. But there's ways to treat surfaces in rooms and cut down echoes, which we did with the new Stiver Center.
Oh.
And, we put it in the budget, had money ready to spend for it. We're not able to do that in the pavilion, and it was going to take way too much work and too much money to get it up to par. So we kind of just stuck with it and dealt with it the best we could until we were able to build the Stiver Center. But I worked with, as you remember, you were involved a little bit with a job I did at Upland Airport, where we did some noise measurements on off-highway vehicles.
Yeah.
We were looking at California State Parks had a job where they were trying to control noise from off-highway vehicles. And I've done a number of jobs for them over the years. Worked for Disney. Disneyland was looking at putting a new entrance into the park. They needed a study to say, is this going to be an impact to the neighbors? How can we control it if it is? Same with vibration due to metros. I've worked in India on some metros in various cities in India regarding vibration and how it may impact new buildings or existing buildings that are above the subway or alongside a ground-based train. That's just some of the things.
Wow, incredible.
A lot of work I did over the years was with FAA. They provided airport funding to airports to sound insulate homes because the noise was an impact to these neighbors. So we did a lot to quiet tens of thousands of homes around airports across the nation.
Wow, I'm sure there's a lot of grateful people there that may have not even known that work went into all that, because yeah, I hear where I currently live, I hear everything outside. So man, I totally can appreciate that. And yeah, that was one of my first, wasn't really it was a one-day thing, but I remember, I can't remember if I was high school or early college years or whatever, but yeah, I showed up at Cable Airport in Upland. And you're like, someone, I think it was Todd, set it up. You're going to go work for Mr. Martin, work with Mr. Martin. And I held a clipboard. I wrote things down. There was a guy on a motorcycle going back and forth. And my big job in the middle of the day was I had to go to In-N-Out and get like 20 double doubles for everybody in a long car line. But anyway, yeah, I can't remember what it was all about, but I remember working at Cable Airport on the runway with you and your colleagues there. So fun memories indeed. Let's see, Mr. Martin, you've got a great career. Sounds like you're doing great work there and everything, but let's go back to kind of the beginning, if you will. Let's go down memory lane and talk about your life, if you will. Where did you grow up? I always ask people this with Kare. Where did you grow up, and how in the world did you come across this place known as Boys Christian League at the time?
Well, when I was first born, we lived in Glendora. My dad had a house there. And then we moved to Arcadia on Sunset, the extension of Temple City Boulevard, just south of Huntington. And when I was in third grade, I believe it was, third grade, we moved to Temple City, which was on the border of the Arcadia School District versus the El Monte School District, because my dad wanted us in the Arcadia School District. So I went to Arcadia schools along the way, and there I met Chris Horton and Ken McCammon, two guys that were in Boys Christian League at the time. And Chris invited me and his mom talked to my mom, and that's how I first started.
The moms talking to each other. Yeah, that seems to be the way for a lot of the experiences I've talked to kids about. But Mr. Martin, born in Glendora. Okay, I like that. I'm from Glendora. I noticed.
No. Go back.
Not born in Glendora?
No, I was born in Pasadena at the Huntington Memorial Hospital. At the time, I'm not sure if they had a apartment in Pasadena. I think they did. And then they bought a place in Glendora.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, significant time in Glendora, Gator country. As we know, I'm very proud of Gator alum. I see your light blue Gator colored shirt there on. I'm just saying it's irony. That's irony. That's all I'm saying. So you and Chris Horton, I've heard from Mr. Horton a lot in his club meetings and things, talking about, the good old days with teammates and such. So what did you think of Kare Youth League, or excuse me, Boys Christian League at the time, or was it Boys Christian League? What did you think of all that, playing ball with your friends and, the experience that is Boys Christian League?
It was really fun. What was interesting was I had played a year in fourth grade. I played a year at Little League. And so I didn't start Kare Youth League until basketball season as a fifth grader. And so I didn't really understand a whole lot, but I know that my parents had planned for me to sign up for Little League again. And so I remember sitting, going to the basketball game. And I don't know, I just had told Mr. Taylor, I think was my coach at the time, and told him that I was, my parents were going to sign me up for Little League. So I was actually sitting out of the game a little bit because, I wasn't going to be there anymore. I was going to be playing Little League. And I think I'm not sure why it came up, but I think I asked him, can I go in the game? And he said something about, well, you're not going to be here. You're going to be going to Little League. And I don't know if I told my brother who was there at the game or what. I tell, go call my mom and dad. Go call mom. Tell her I don't want to play Little League. Because I didn't know, I didn't understand that Kare Youth League was also going to play baseball. So anyway, he calls, and my mom said, well, your dad just went to sign him up at the park. So she drove up there. And just as he was getting ready to pay the down payment for the Little League, he says, he doesn't want to play Little League. And so that ended it right there. And so I didn't go to Little League. I played at Kare.
Wow.
Boys Christian League.
BC, just in the nick of time, Mr. Taylor, had he not said those words to you, who knows what would have happened. That's interesting. That's who are some of your other leaders or coaches that you had in Boys Christian League?
I had Mr. Johnson most of the time, up through, I don't know, 6th, 7th grade, whatever it was at the time. Junior high, I played for Mr. Orick at one point in Kare Youth League. And then Armin Maskamp was a coach for about a year. And then in high school, I obviously had Mr. Orick, Mr. Dowd, and Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, and at that time, to my knowledge, the school was still pretty new. Rio Hondo Prep now we're kind of getting into. And so was there, I don't know what it was like back then. Was it looked at as just a continuation of BCL, or was it, okay, this is a new big step. They have a school, but it's still kind of new. Was there any kind of hesitation to go to Rio Hondo Prep?
Yeah, I didn't go to Rio Hondo Prep till I was in 10th grade. My dad had made sure we were in the Arcadia school districts because Arcadia schools had a very good school district, and wasn't planning on paying money to go to a private school. I despised what I saw at the public school as far as the way people acted, the way they would beat up on the guy that was weaker, or take his lunch money, or be smoking in the hallway or the bathroom, or talking about drugs and I don't know if they were selling drugs. I was kind of out of it, not in that crowd, so I just heard rumors. So that was why, starting in 9th grade, I wanted to come to Rio Hondo Prep, and made that change in 10th grade.
Wow, interesting. So this is off topic a little bit here, but so when Rio played Arcadia, let's see, back in I think 2012, and absolutely demolished them. Did that game have a little extra meaning for you, watching Rio beat up on the Apaches that day?
Oh yes, a little bit. I mean, it was. I went to First Avenue. I never actually went to Arcadia High because 9th grade was still at junior high level. But yeah.
Oh, very nice. Interesting. So Rio Hondo Prep, you already mentioned Mr. Chris Horton, John Martin, and these guys could be, grade below you or your same age or whatever, but John Martin, Casey Clevenger, some names I know. You mentioned a few already. Talk to me about your teammates and your peers, your colleagues, really, and kind of the what that was like with Rio Hondo Prep still being pretty new. It sounded like you guys were a very tight-knit group, and just kind of what was the overall experience like for you?
Well, it was a small high school. We were very close, very tight. Every one of us was kind of looking out for each other. I mean, not only for their physical benefit, but also their spiritual benefit, to make sure if there was any issues, hey, what's going on here? This something's not right. That was something that we commonly would talk about. And there's always some people that, maybe didn't want that. And so they would, sometimes there was a second group of people that would not want to be in your group, but not too much, not really much that way. Most of the time they would choose to go to another school if they didn't appreciate the atmosphere we had at Rio Hondo Prep. But everybody that I remember, we just had a great time. We were pulling for each other, working hard, and helping each other out.
what was interesting, I talked to both John Martin and Chris Horton and talking kind of about this era in Rio and specifically football. I'm a big football guy. And, Chris Horton told me, he hated football, but he did it for the team. And John Martin just talking about the camaraderie really in you guys. And not only that, but however long ago that's been 40, almost 50 years now, it really created some lifelong friendships with those guys, but I'm sure some other teammates as well.
Oh yeah, we've got deep friendships, deep camaraderie. Charlie Parsons was another one of those that we played together. Guys that came up from JVs, and even during even the JVs themselves, we were close to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of having a small school is you kind of get to know everybody. You're in it together type of thing, real sense of community. And I know back then class sizes were real small. But anyway, so football season, Mr. Horton told me that it was kind of like Steve Martin against everybody else. I mean, just get you the ball, let you run around and do your thing. I'll let you tell us how much truth there is to that. But 1972, I believe you guys have a great season, go all the way to the finals. Unfortunately lose in the championship game. What can you tell me about your experience at Rio playing football and especially that final season?
Well, I loved football. I was small. I was probably 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" at the most, and weighing 135 to 145 pounds when I was playing football. So I ran for my life. Yes. I tried not to have anybody tackle me. And I was fortunate to have some moves that would fake people out. And then if I got around the corner, I could find somebody to throw it to. As soon as I could, I'd throw it to somebody because I didn't want to get tackled. Although I do remember doing some stupid things, like one time trying to dive into the end zone to get a touchdown when I was close and getting pummeled. But, it's part of football, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. You sound like my teammate Jordan Ross. He was a little guy running back for us in our high school years, and some guys younger than us were like, "Man, Jordan, you're so good. You're so fast. How do you do it?" And he's just like, "I'm actually just terrified and don't want to get tackled. So you just do what you got to do." But that final season, or your senior year, I should say, you guys go all the way to the championship game, Brethren Christian, I believe, and it's a crazy story. You guys actually scored more touchdowns than the other team and lost. Is that correct?
No, I think we scored the same amount. But, okay. They made all their extra points, and the extra points were 2 points in those days because you only had 6 men on the field. So they figured it was harder to kick the field goal than just to run it in.
Yeah.
And, Brethren was a school of, 600-800 kids. They had a network of churches where they would pull together players that were, good. I think their kicker went to college and was a kicker for the college, and then even tried out for, I don't know if it was the Vikings or somebody. Didn't actually make it, but at least he tried out. So they had some pretty big guys, talented guys. But another thing that I do remember is just at halftime, we had the ball and we were running the ball down to the score. And John Martin actually held the ball out over the end zone line to score a touchdown. And they didn't call it because we knew more than the officials did. They didn't understand that was a touchdown if you broke the plane. It's like, hello.
Yeah. He told that exact story in the podcast. And he said, I think Philip Ostergaard was there and he was saying, you were totally in. So no video, I guess, back then to overturn anything. But yeah, him telling that story in great detail, as you know, he can do, was pretty special. So tough way to close out the senior season. And, Rio Hondo Prep football, to me, Mr. Martin, it's very special. I've been promoting it a lot these past few months and everything. Did you guys, I know it was a tough loss, but did you guys feel, maybe not at the time, but have you felt it since then that you guys kind of helped propel this small school program? I mean, Rio Hondo Prep has seen countless CIF championships. Heck, they won the very next year. after you guys lost. Do you guys feel any sense of, I don't know, not accomplishment, but just pride, I'll say, in that you guys were kind of at the beginning of Rio Hondo Prep football?
Yeah, I mean, not only we were the first team that qualified for playoffs in every sport, basketball and in baseball.
Oh,
Um, but there was a lot of pressure in those days to win. So it was pretty tough when you lost a game, and well, I'll just leave it at that. But it was hard. But yeah, we looked. Of course, we all looked from the stands the following year and said, "Boy, I wish I was out there this year," because there was no Brotherton, no Whittier, no Ontario, all the schools that had the
yeah.
big players and big schools. They'd gone up to 11 man, but it is what it is. It was a great football season, a great career.
Yeah, absolutely. And football, you love football, but I mean, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you guys had great success, we'll say, in the other sports as well. So, I mean, that's the thing about Rio is you pretty much play everything. You play every sport. So you love football, but basketball and baseball, were they kind of a close 1A, 1B as far as your favorites went?
Yeah, I like basketball second. Baseball was probably third. I grew to love baseball a little bit more as I got older and played father softball and some other, and then played baseball while I was in college, and then years later when the college guys needed help and they asked me to play. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Those alumni games, absolutely. Yeah, at least the times I played, I saw you out there. Those RHP alumni games were a lot of fun. No, that'll take us into college. What after high school what were your plans? Did you know that you wanted to absolutely be there at Kare Youth League and service, and kind of what were some of your ideas for a career? Or were you kind of just hoping and praying that something worked out?
Well, no, I felt in high school that late high school that God wanted me at Kare. I felt like I was called to a couple of different things, and I wasn't sure how God was going to put them all together, but I felt I was called in to teach and to coach and do some other things. But so when I went to college, I did some teaching on the side. While I was still in college, I taught some classes at Rio, and initially I was going for a math degree until I found out what math degree really entailed, and I realized that electrical engineering was more my forte, and so I went that direction. I planned to teach, I planned to coach, and then I also, as I was in college, realized that Boys Christian League Rio Hondo Prep was looking towards building a building program that was going to be fairly big, and I thought it might be good if somebody at Rio or in Archelayer leadership had a professional engineering license to be able to assist with whether it was the electrical engineering or something. And so that was my reason for going into full-time work outside, was to get a PE license. However, like I said, the electrical didn't work out, so the acoustics came into being, and it was actually turned out, to me, it seemed more important to have the acoustics degree, or the acoustics experience, and be able to make sure that the Stiver Center and other buildings are properly built so that they're useful.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me in talking to people, just how career paths go, or just life path goes. We have the ambition versus God's plan, or sometimes those are tied in. I mean, it's interesting how you think you're going to go one direction and you end up going completely different one, and then later on down the road, it's like, oh yeah, I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I ended up going that direction, or being pushed that direction, even because it was not only good for me,
Sure.
but for other people, right?
Yep, definitely.
So, Mr. Martin, you're somebody I think of, I know we don't do the team names anymore, Atlantic, Coral, Indian, Superior in the West, but you're one of the first guys I think of when I think of Indian. And I had so many friends who played on Indian. Devin Drain comes to mind, of course. Fred Montablanco, a good friend of mine now. And even Bill Ritter, he played on Superior, but I think when I was playing in fourth or fifth grade, you guys combined to be the Bulldogs or something, if I remember correctly. So do any of those names, what memories do those names bring up to you, if you will, from your coaching days?
Well, they bring up all kinds of memories. I mean, I remember, I mean, going even farther back, I remember coaching Michael Dow Jr. and Devin Drain and Ed and JT and all these guys.
Right.
And I mean, there's so many experiences that you have with them. A lot of times it's maybe the outings that are more memorable to some of them. I remember coaching a group with Herman Wagner and some other guys, and remember having an overnight in the Indian club room, and I told them the story of the white albino, and they told me that the next morning they didn't sleep the whole night. They kept looking out, and they were scared something was going to come get them. And we don't for that reason we don't tell these stories anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, championships or non-championship teams. You know, sometimes if you had a team that wasn't that great, you just had a lot of outings and you had a lot of fun.
That's what Fred said. He says, we're really good at outings. We were very good at others. I told him I was going to record with you. And he said, yeah, we were working. It was a young kid, I think. And you guys were working on a field, right? Taking pride in field 2 or the Indian field, I think it was. And he showed up late and then was sloppy. And he said, yeah, Mr. Martin got on me about, hey, you know what, you don't show up late. And then also, if you're going to do something, do your best. So some of those little things have stuck with some of my friends over the years from your guidance over them, we'll say.
Well, that's great to hear. It's what's funny is, you know, a lot of times you don't hear those stories. And you know, you have kids, they go off and they go on to their careers, and sometimes you hear maybe a hello from them or something. But you know, one of the things that really sparked me one time was I was in the middle of a club meeting, and somebody in the office was trying to get a hold of me saying somebody was there to see me. And I said, well, I'm almost done. I got done, went outside, and I saw Jesse Rodriguez. This is a guy that I'd had on my team years ago. He was on the same team as Kelly Prieto and Ray Torres and a few other guys. But anyway, he had waited for me. He had brought me a coffee mug that had Desert Storm on it. And he says, you know, I want you to know I was there, and I remembered all the things you taught me, all the things I learned. And those things kept me going while I was there. And, you know, that just broke my heart to think, okay, here's a kid that I haven't seen in so many years. And obviously, Kare Youth League and made a big impression on his life and helped him get through a very difficult time.
Well, I've been doing this over a year now. That is one of the best stories I've heard from anybody. Just being in Desert Storm and thinking back to his days on Indian and Kare Youth League. I mean, incredible story. Tribute to you, Mr. Martin, and so many other people. Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff. I don't know where to go from there, but no, I mean, back to, I mean, Indian and coaching. I mean, did you find that, at least in my short experience doing it, did you find coaching kind of either helped you out in other walks of life, maybe your job, or maybe later on down the road? Like, I find that coaching almost is educational for coaches as well as players.
Definitely, because, you know, you have to figure out ways to fix a problem, or when you go into a game, you've got to have some strategy that's going to help you work, or you're dealing with parents and kids. And so knowing how to talk to them about issues and solve some problems, that naturally leads into my job as an acoustical consultant, where I'm dealing with clients, or I'm dealing with neighborhoods or cities, and we're trying to solve problems. And knowing how to talk about these things with them clearly and helping them understand the issues and understand what their issues are and helping them solve them.
Yes. 100%, 100% indeed. I think a lot of us who played ball as kids, even in high school or whatever, like you remember maybe some of your teachers' names, your math teacher, your history teacher, but I think the impact that coaches have on young people is truly remarkable because it carries with them in all walks of life, specifically, as you just mentioned in that story with one of your former players. And I also got to ask this, I had Ed Drain on here, the Drain family, a very special group of people to me, but I'm trying to remember, when Ed was diagnosed with leukemia, I know he was in Indiana and you eventually coached him. Were you coaching him at that time?
I was coaching him at that time. What was interesting was, I lost my wife just before I took Ed's team. And I can remember, can't remember if it was Mara, it's probably Mara who talked and was talking to me about some things and said, are you still planning on coaching? And my answer was, of course, yes. And she said, well, because they were looking forward to having Ed on my team because he was supposed to be on my next team or whatever. And so, yeah, I had Ed and remember when it's not something to laugh about when he got that diagnosis. But what was strange was after he'd gotten through most of that in the hospital and he was playing on my team still, I had to know what his medication situation was and what his how he was feeling because I had to decide, okay, is he going to pitch today or is he going to play? How much am I going to put him in the basketball game or whatever it was? So yeah, it was a crazy time. A lot of prayer that went from a lot of people towards Ed, and so grateful that God saw him through it.
Yeah, 100%. Shave your head for Ed. Remember those banners everywhere. All his teammates. I mean, I was in high school and we were all pulling for him. I remember him up sitting, I think not a wheelchair, but sitting in the stands by his house during CIF champion or playoff football games, all bundled up. And we were like, Devin was my teammate, of course. So we were all pulling for Ed, going to see him. But I want to tell this story real quick while we're kind of on this subject, but Ed, JT, Wes Mosier, I might have forgotten some other names there. This is one of the craziest games I've ever seen at any level. A big mismatch. And again, Ed had just was still in the process of beating cancer and everything. I actually refereed this basketball game, Mr. Martin. The Indian guys in AAA went up against the Cardinals, who had all kinds of talent, hadn't even lost a game in like any sport in 3 or 4 years. And Eddie told this story and it was truly remarkable. You know what? I might have still been a senior because Ed told us, okay, now you guys got to go beat Price, I think it was. But you guys upset the Cardinals. I talked to Phil Horton about this. He kind of chuckled about it. But I remember seeing this going, man, I know this is youth sports, but this is almost like a movie should be made about this. Do you remember that day and beating those Cardinals with that group of guys?
Of course. I could never forget that. I mean, I had tried to strategize every other time we played them and couldn't find anything that worked. And then I finally decided, because I knew a lot of the scores that they made were because they had 2 tall guys out playing guards and they would steal the ball and go lay it up and get a lot of their scores that way. So I was determined we weren't going to let them do that. And I had the point guard just dribble down the left or right side so that the one guard couldn't guard him. So we had an open wing and a low post. But those guys, our guys, they hit the shots. They made, I can't remember what percentage they made. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And we upset them.
It was their day, your guys' day. I couldn't believe it. It was really something. Again, I started refereeing youth sports at a very young age. And I do want to say this, there's a few leaders out there, a few coaches who are incredibly nice men, very nice men, godly men, competitive men. Some of the coaches out there, a few come to mind, and you're one of them. As an official, especially a young kid, and this is no knock on you, it was just a perception as a kid. It was somewhat intimidating when you walked on that court or walked on the field. And again, it was just maybe an age different thing or that I was new to officiating and everything. But I always remember your games at a young age, stepping out there and we're like, oh, I got Mr. Martin today. I better be on it or he's going to let me know.
So how many times did I let you know?
Oh, well, per game, a few times. No, but over the years, yeah. But no, you were good. You made me a better official. I'll say that.
It's hard sometimes when you're a coach, because sometimes obviously you can see things two ways, and you're a little biased when you're the coach. So,
yeah,
I mean, I try to make sure I keep that in mind when I was coaching, but probably couldn't always do it.
Hey, we all get ultra competitive at times. And I'll tell you this, like when I had a decent officiating career, high school and college stuff, I remember literally being on fields and telling myself, about the guys, the coaches I was working for, I guess you'd say, is I'd be like, these guys are nothing. I used to work games by myself from Mr. Steve Martin, Rod Heaton, Mike Murphy. These guys would scream at me and I was by myself. I got nothing. These guys got nothing on me. So it brought me down, made me relax. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. It was funny times. But anyway, Mr. Martin, you mentioned it a little bit ago. I think I could have the year wrong. Excuse me if I thought it was looking back at my timeline of kind of when I was in 8th grade and 9th grade and such. Your wife, Pam, unfortunately passed away in a car accident, devastated you, your family, the whole organization, really. And I remember not really a connection to it, but I was in 8th grade and the girls in my class were coached by Pam, and they were her last official group that she had coached for a year, I believe. And I'm just saying all that because I remember how hard that was for them, my classmates, my peers, and how hard they took that. So if you would, I mean, I know it's not necessarily always a fun subject to talk about, but can you take me back to that horrible day, that horrible accident, and just kind of that experience?
Sure. That was also the night of a rehearsal dinner for the wedding between Rick and Valerie Johnson. Now, I was actually at that dinner awaiting my wife to come when I got a phone call from some strange person, had no idea who it was, and said, "You need to come." And they didn't say much, but I headed over there, and I remember driving. It was and saying to myself, I don't care about the car. That's material stuff. Lord, I just take care of her. I can remember it was bumper to bumper traffic, so I was driving on the shoulder sometimes. I just said, going up Kellogg Hill, I said, I don't care. If the officer stops me, I'll tell him why. I got to get to this accident. And by the time I got there, they told me she was over at Pomona Hospital. And so I went there, and, it was rough because nobody said anything to me for the longest time. I remember finally, after a while, I went to some waiting area somewhere, and, my mind just started going on some things. And I said, I'd had an accident previously where I was hit by a car. My head was cracked. I had been unconscious for 3 days in intensive care for a week. And so, I just kind of expected that God was going to wake her up, I didn't know how long. But in that waiting room, I had a feeling all of a sudden that, what if she doesn't make it? And the weirdest, I'll call it weird. It's not really weird, but it was strange to me how Christ's words came to me. Basically, it said, Lord, I'm praying that Pam be okay, but I want your will, not mine. And as soon as I said that in my mind, I said, what are you saying? Are you nuts? Anyway, later I was told that, she had lost oxygen to the brain. And so she was not going to be a viable person anymore. And Tommy was, 7 or 8 months. He was still breastfeeding at the time, and Hannah was 7. And so I had 4 kids between 1 year and 7 months. And so, yeah, it was very hard. My first thought was, how am I going to take care of these kids, and how am I going to work, and how am I going to do these other things? But I finally hired somebody to come to the house to take the kids and get them ready for school, because I'd usually leave early for work so I could get back to coach. And then I'd get back and I'd coach, and I'd come home because I'd have the same person pick them up from school and take them home. And then I'd come home and take care of them the rest of the night, get them off to bed. And yeah, I did that for 5 years until thankfully Pam and I got married. But the one thing that gave me a lot of strength in all of that is that, I knew that the morning that this happened, as my usual procedure was, that I prayed for my family, and I prayed for Pam. I prayed that God would take care of her and have his will in her life. I did see her later at a practice where she picked up the kids from me, because she was off looking at, she went to a graduation at Cal Poly Pomona for some of the girls she had coached. And, but that was one of the things that helped me get through it. The other thing that I've told many people many times, that, if God hadn't wanted that to happen, he could have delayed her by 5 seconds, or the idiot that was driving recklessly could have been 10 seconds faster or 10 seconds slower. And, if this was, still hard to accept. I can remember asking Mr. Ostergaard when he came over, Francis Ostergaard came over to the house and wanted to talk. And I said, why me? I'm sure everybody asks that same question when something bad happens. He said to me, well, why not you? And I looked at him strange. He says, what if he thought you were the only one that could handle it?
Wow.
Well, okay. And all the other things that I knew, and I knew that God was in control. And I said, well, if God has a reason for this, I may never know it, but I've got a job to do, and I've got to take care of these kids. And so I had some help. And was my faith tested during this time? Yes, a little bit, but not that much, because I looked and said, okay, if this happened to somebody that had no faith in God, what would they do?
Oof.
Where would they go? They might do what someone else that I think Eileen, who was Pam's mom, really appreciated the way I handled things after it. Obviously she was devastated with her daughter's death, but she herself, her mom had died when she was young, and she saw her dad take to drinking and eventually put her in a home with a nephew and an uncle or something, and an uncle. And, I certainly didn't want something like that to happen, to have my kids have no leadership, nobody, no parenting. So my faith was in God, and I figured he'll have to get me through it. And he did.
Well, Mr. Martin, to me, your strength, your leadership through all that, again, being the leader now of 4 kids. It was you and your wife before, and 4 young kids, as you mentioned. Tommy was 7 months old, and I think that was a concern for a lot of people, with not just you and the kid, but just, man, 4 young kids losing their mother at a young age. I lost my mom at 23, and a very similar feelings. It was just a shock. It broke me in some ways and made me stronger in others. And I just remember feeling the support of so many people, Kare Youth League specifically, Rio Hondo Prep specifically, that were there, that really did mean, they did mean the whole cliche, let me know if you need anything. People really did mean it. And I don't know.
I should make that really clear. And I should have already said that. I had so much support from so many people, friends, leadership, even some of the parents on teams. It gave me another perspective for what issues a single parent faces at Kare Youth League. But I had so much help from leaders and friends, and the leadership was was the reason that I had somebody here to help me in the mornings and in the afternoons. I was paying these people to do this work because it was important, but they helped me make sure that I had somebody, and when there were issues, people jumped in, people were willing to do things. And a lot of times it was hard to accept them because it's like, you've done so much already for me.
Yeah.
I'll just get through this. And it's like, no, you won't.
Well, your testimony here is incredible, because I think it brings up a lot of different thoughts for all of us listening. The power of prayer, just inner strength, having faith tested. But like that was a great point you made about, if this had happened to someone who didn't have faith, what direction would they have gone? And I think anyone who suffered at all, you go through a whirlwind of emotions. So I know thank you so much for saying all that. I remember her memorial was spectacular. I mean, if you could say that about a memorial, just the music, the outpouring of love and support, definitely a moment I will always remember as a young kid. I was, I think, 14, 15 years old when it all happened. So, yeah, I didn't have a ton of memories of Mrs. Martin, but I knew that my classmates in 8th grade, the girls in my class, absolutely loved her. She was so nice to the young men, as well as us 8th grade boys, the brief interactions we had. But anyway, Mr. Martin, a few years later, as you mentioned, you remarried a wonderful woman in Jeanette Wickstrom, now Jeanette Martin. And I knew Jeanette a little bit, but I know this. She's a huge sports fan. She posts a lot about sporting events and places you guys have gone and traveled to and such. So, and then she became a mother of 4 overnight. So what was that whole experience like? I mean, I don't even know where to start, really. I mean, just her stepping into your life, I guess I'd say.
Well, it was obviously a very difficult thing for her. She was looking forward to getting married, and I was looking forward to getting married, but all of this, I probably dragged my feet a little bit just because I wanted to make sure that she wasn't, she had some idea what she was going into. Before we got married, she was working here with the kids and fixing dinners and doing all those things. So, and after marrying her, she did such a great job helping with the kids, being the mother that they needed, being the wife that I needed. And we formed a very good family. Before we got married, I said that we were going to have a good honeymoon because we didn't have a lot of time by ourselves like most people do. You have time together and then you have kids. Well, the kids were already there. So after we got married, we went for a 5-week honeymoon, where we went to Europe and into Africa to visit Doug and Noel and see their mission in Kenya, and then also took a safari while we were there. And but when we got back, then the kids were there and I was gone. I was working, so it was very difficult on her. But she came up to the bar and reached over the bar and handled everything and helped quite a bit. Now we well, you were talking about sports fans, or
Yeah,
what was the actual question?
No, I mean, I see her on social media. She's posting all kinds of stuff about the Dodgers all the time. I think you guys went to the World Series last year. I mean, to me, it seems like now that the kids are grown, the real honeymoon has started because you guys are traveling around all over to different sporting events.
Well, yes, but we traveled a lot when the kids were here too, and partly because, you know, before Pam died, that end of that school year, I had planned a trip to take her. Things were different back then. We didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't that people didn't travel much. I was trying to find a time to take Pam just over to Catalina to have a couple nights over there or something. And I knew she wouldn't miss school for it. So I had to figure out how to do it and when to do it. And then didn't have a chance to do it because she was killed. And so I kind of decided that it was going to be important to do things together, especially with Jeanette coming in as a new mom. She, by the way, I should have mentioned, she did go through the process of adopting them so that she was the full-fledged mother.
Wow.
Which took quite some time and paperwork and whatnot. But anyway, I wanted to take trips with the whole family so we could meld together as a unit. And so we went on a lot of trips with the kids. Now that the kids are gone, yes, we do some traveling on our own. We love the Dodgers. She always says, you know, fan is short for fanatic. And she is certainly a fanatic. She's probably more of a fan than I am, although I enjoy it. And we probably watch every Dodger game that there is, either on TV or go to it. And when the COVID season was there and nobody could go to any games, and finally the game was going to be in Arlington, and we found a way for us and the Kirby's, Dan and Joel, to go to Arlington and watch one of the World Series games, which they lost with this crazy last minute overthrows and things.
Oh, you were at that game. That game. Yeah, that game was wild.
Melee game. But anyway, it was great to be there and see it, and yeah, be a fan again.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You said, you know, probably a bigger love of baseball later on in life. And I'm assuming she had a lot to do with that. With her, I mean, she stepped in, the kids were still relatively young, and it's an incredible story, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about all this today. But I mean, you guys evolved, had this great family together, and now the 4 kids all grown up. I mean, what can you speak of about your 4 kids, Hannah, Samantha, Tommy, and Stephen, and kind of their accomplishments as adults and growing up after having gone through something so really traumatic at a young age?
Well, yes, I think there was obviously a big hurt in all of their lives, not having a mother, losing their mother. I mean, I can't say enough how proud we are of all 4 of them. I mean, Hannah is a teacher at Arroyo who felt it was important for kids at Arroyo to also have somebody that was a godly teacher that could, you know, point them to Christ. And Sammy, who's a nurse and been helping patients in their struggles. And Stephen, I don't know if he is a, what's the expression, chip off the old block, because he's kind of going into engineering like I did, he's into mechanical engineering and working there. And Tom, who's finished his business degree and looking to maybe get an MBA and looking into what kind of business he can do in the hospitality industry. So, yeah, I mean, it was, you know, Jeanette, in one way, she brought, I kind of stayed away from video games with the kids, and she kind of brought that into the kids, which, you know, okay, it was all right for a little bit, you know, but then it got to the point where, okay, now you're in high school, and you know what? we both agreed that we're going to have to take these away from them. We might let them do some on the weekends or something, but it was more important to get everything else done. And so that was something that they didn't appreciate at the time, but we're fortunate that, most of them, because they worked hard in high school, were able to get some kind of a grant for college and or a scholarship of some sort. So,
wow. Well, all of them pursuing fields where they're, at service to others, it sounds like, and just, man, they seem incredibly motivated, pursuing some rather difficult fields and not an easy road for sure, but it sounds like they're going to be very successful. You got to be proud of him. And it has a lot to do with you and Jeanette and your guys' leadership, and also just, raising four fine individuals. I don't know if you know this, Mr. Martin, but there's some young people out there these days that are kind of going a little different direction, we'll say. And it has a lot to do with lack of leadership from the adults. So I know you're incredibly proud of them, and you should be.
Yeah, lack of parenting, or parents that think they don't want to rock the boat or set standards. And the facts are, kids, adolescents, they want boundaries. They want boundaries because that makes them feel safe. And you don't give them boundaries, and they're going to get involved in the things that are going to destroy their lives.
Oh, that's so well said. Very well said indeed. Well, Mr. Martin, in kind of wrapping it up here, I wanted to ask you if you had a message, really, or just kind of some words of wisdom, if you will, for anyone who's going through adversity, they're in a storm, we'll say. I mean, what advice would you give after going through something that none of us can really imagine, something so horrible, to go through that and just fight through it and conquer it? Really, I mean, I'm sure it sticks with you still, but what would be your message to those who are struggling? Because this past year, I don't know, and a lot of people went through a lot of obstacles and just hardships. So what would be your message to those struggling as far as just excelling, getting through it all?
Well, I would say, God knows what we're going through. I mean, he sees us, he cares. And at times when we go through things like this, he's going to seem like an uncaring father. Like he doesn't know what's going on, or that he doesn't care, but he does. I read a comparison or a simile that states that God is like the guy up in the helicopter that's doing the traffic report. We're sitting down there in the car, and we can't understand what is wrong. Why can't I go? Is there an accident up here? Or we can't see it because we can't see far enough advance. He's up in the helicopter, and he can look down and he can see what's going on. He's got it all taken care of. He knows what the problems are. He knows how he's going to get us through it. And even though he seems like he may not care, it's not true. He does care. And just count on him to get you through it. We may never understand some of the reasons why these bad things happen. And I'm not sure if, in heaven, there's supposed to be nothing bad. So are you going to remember any of the bad things that happen on earth? And will you be able to ask God and say, why did this happen? I don't know. I've asked that myself, because I've said, when I get to heaven, I'd like to know why God ordered my life the way he did. But some of us won't have any of those answers until later. But God does care. He will see us through.
Well, very well said. I'll definitely take that with me here into the weekend and beyond. And Mr. Martin, this has been a real pleasure. I really appreciate you chat with me about some serious subject matter, as well as kind of going down memory lane. I hope everyone who's listened to this has taken something from it, a way to be stronger, a way to be a better leader. And you've touched a lot of lives, a lot of kids you coach, and also your four kids yourself. So this has been an honor, sir. Seriously, bottom of my heart. And I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was was fun to talk and go through memory lane and provide some thoughts.
Sounds great. Well, enjoy the rest of the Dodger baseball season here. I'm sure you and Jeanette will be watching closely, and
They got to catch up with the Giants and get ahead of them.
Yeah, right. I was saying that all year. Everyone's been saying that all year. It's like, oh, they'll be fine. But hey, it's September now. Time to pick it up.
Yep.
Thanks again, Mr. Bard.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm definitely feeling some inner strength today after having that conversation with Mr. Steve Martin. I hope you guys are also. I mean, what more can you say about a wonderful man who's not only a leader, but just has an inner strength and an inspiration to so many people, not just the kids he coached, but the kids he raised, his wife, Jeanette, all his peers. I'm just an incredible person. And man, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that and took something from it, because I know I sure did. So thanks again, Steve Martin. An absolute pleasure, sir. Well, guys, I will wrap up our week of shows here on the Get Home Safe podcast. Another week in the books. We head into another weekend, take a few days off, and then we'll be back for more shows next week. On Monday, we will be joined by head football coach Mark Carson to talk about the Rio Hondo Prep game from this Friday, and look forward to the upcoming game the following Friday. Hopefully we get a chance to sit down with Mark. I mean, that's the plan, I should say. So hopefully there's no obstacles. We make that happen. Wednesday, I'll be with Bill Barnes, on the weekly Wednesday weigh-in, the retired police officer who joins me every single week. And we have another great guest next Friday that I will let you guys know about on our social media platforms. What are those places, you ask? Well, our Instagram and Facebook page is Get Home Safe Podcast. Our Twitter handle is Get Home Safe Pod. And our email address is gethomesafepodcast@yahoo.com. Follow us on Instagram, or said all that already. Follow us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Get Home Safe Podcast, where you can see the most recent episodes from the past few months anyway. And of course, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find our podcast, Get Home Safe Podcast. Give us a like, review, follow, all that good stuff. Appreciate all the support. It helps our podcast continue to grow and to evolve. And so we're always looking for more and more great content, and that involvement from you guys helps it to operate more smoothly. Guys, have a great rest of your week. Well, I should say we're at the end of the week. It's Friday. What am I thinking? But the weekend is here. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully from the conversation you heard today, you're inspired to fight through any adversity that you're going through. I know I do quite a bit more. So anybody, quite a bit more, whatever I'm supposed to say there. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. But as always, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town or around in third base, get home safe.